Is Meghan Markle a plagiarist? That is what one author is accusing Meghan of being after she alleges that Pearl, her book series, was taken by Meghan Markle essentially and pitched to Netflix in a series that was eventually canceled. This is a really fascinating story. And of course, we've seen time after time where Meghan is constantly stealing ideas from others. I mean, there is really nothing new, original, or interesting about her series with Meghan or her product line. Anything is necessarily new. She's just regurgitating what people have done before and better. But there's something rather fascinating about this particular case and how it's actually being picked up by a lot of outlets, and how I think the shield that Harry and Meghan had for so long, even in the American media, even in their friendliest outlets, is dying and or dead because Harry and Meghan have made a series of catastrophic mistakes, which after time after time are too big now to hide or conceal or what have you. So they're getting blown into the mainstream and everybody is becoming aware of it. So we shall explore this case today because I found something super interesting about this book series that really does align with Meghan Markle. It's like almost the soap story. There's basically a soap story in this book series. So we shall get into this. But if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany. I provide you all compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, I would absolutely love to have you back. And if you enjoy all the things we discussed here about all the other royals, feel free to check out the link up above. We have a trip to south of France in September from the 25th through the 30th. We still have spots available, although they're limited, and it will start closing here within the next not too long a period of time. So if you guys want to come and hang out with the best crew of royal watchers ever, feel free to check out the link up above or down below, and we would love to have you join us. Now, before we get into this video, let's do a little bit of what I like to call the Crown Report, which is looking at other royal news going on throughout the European continent mainly. So we do have sort of an interesting situation there in the Netherlands because obviously with Pope Francis's death, there has been a big question over who would attend his funeral because apparently my understanding is that somebody from the Dutch royal family did not attend the funeral of Pope John Paul II. And unfortunately, there was a big scheduling conflict because, you can't anticipate when funerals would be with King's Day, which is a huge national celebration in the Netherlands, and the Pope's funeral, which are both on Saturday. So it has been officially announced that King's Day will be delayed by an hour for the Pope's funeral. But what's also interesting too is that apparently the Dutch comms offices sort of prevented reporters from asking questions about the situation with the Vatican. And I thought that was really, really interesting that they were sort of trying to run interference quite a bit. I follow some Dutch reporters and they were complaining about that on X. And I thought, again, that's super fascinating to me. I love those sorts of things because you hear about this stuff sort of about the Brits, but we don't always hear about it about the other royals. So I love to bring them up in whenever I can. And I think I'll do a video here somewhat soon about sort of the monarchies that would say are pretty stable, some that maybe could tip either way, and some that are more unstable. And there has been a series of, you could say, scandals in the Netherlands that would make it maybe more vulnerable than you might think. Although we do have indications that the country is embracing the future Queen Catherine Amalia. But I think there are also some issues going on there, which I think would be interesting to explore. And that includes other royal households too, like Norway. So we have Queen Sonja of Norway, who had some difficulty breathing and was taken to, or shortness of breath, I should say, and was taken by air ambulance because she was up, I believe, at some sort of like ski chateau or something, and was air ambulance back to Oslo to see her doctors. She was released a day later, but she has been having problems. Her husband has been having health problems. They're both in their late 80s now, and she has a pacemaker that was put in last year, and he did the year before or the same year, I believe. So both of them are struggling with a bit of health issues, which is a grave concern, given all that's happened with Marius Borg-Holmby, who is the son of the crown princess. He is not a blood royal, but he has had a lot of legal trouble. We actually do need to catch up on that case here sometime soon. He's been arrested twice. He has huge cases against him. So that is definitely a drag on the Norwegian monarchy for sure. And I'm sure not helping anybody's health situations. We also do have an updating news for Catherine and William. So William will be attending the funeral of Pope Francis on Saturday, April 26th. And from April 29th through the 30th, the two of them will be in Scotland and they will be visiting the Isle of Mull. So that is very exciting. It'll be part of their 14th wedding anniversary. We do also have Prince Louis's birthday coming up tomorrow. So we should be getting a picture probably on social media sometime soon. Now, usually by this time, we would have it because they release it very late at night in the UK. But because of everything that happened last year with Catherine's picture, obviously they're holding it back. So, guys, that is all we have for today's Crown Report. And let's get back into these plagiarism claims because this is sort of both, yes, a big story, and yes, in some ways, maybe not as big a story as you might think. The reality is, guys, in many ways, there are constant issues with people sort of poaching ideas in the entertainment industry. They get a pitch from somebody and they go with it, even though they should have given somebody else credit for it. And there's all sorts of, you could say, frictions with this issue because sometimes the challenge with copyright is that it's an idea that another person could have technically had. So how do you prove exactly that it came exactly from this source? That's sort of the challenge here. I will just want to lay that caveat up front. However, the similarities with apparently what Mel Robbins, the author, wanted to do and Meghan is really, really striking. And of course, the big thing is the name. I think Meghan tried to pitch it at some point that her nickname was Pearl, if I remember correctly. And so that's how she was sort of tying it in. But let's look at what the Daily Mail shows as sort of the original impetus for this series that Meghan was going to pitch to the world and pitched to Netflix. And it sounded like at the time the streaming giant was working on trying to get it to screens. So here's the original bit we've got. Pearl, working title, is an animated series that centers on the heroic adventures of a 12-year-old girl who is inspired by influential women from history. Meghan will serve as the executive producer alongside David Furnish, obviously Elton John's husband, and a couple other people. This one, Liz Garbus, was part of their series, Harry and Meghan. And Meghan is quoted as saying, like many girls her age, our heroine Pearl is on a journey of self-discovery as she tries to overcome life's daily challenges. I'm thrilled that Archwell Productions partnered with the powerhouse platform of Netflix, and these incredible producers will together bring you this new animated series, which celebrates extraordinary women throughout history. David Furnish and I have been eager to bring this special series to light, and I'm delighted that we are able to announce it today. However, by May of 2022, I imagine this was announced in 2021, this series was officially dead. Now, the general announcement of its cancellation basically said that they decided to cut back on their animated series, Netflix did, and decide to go in a different direction. Now that totally makes sense. That does definitely happen in the entertainment industry. They've obviously cut other shows as well. I would argue that I don't think this series would have done particularly well. I think it would have just done okay. It's one of those things where I feel like it's more about the parents wanting their kids to watch it than something that would actually engage a child, if that makes sense. So I find that sort of interesting, but also neither here nor there. This probably just wasn't going to do very well in the first place. It makes sense to cancel it. However, as it turns out, illustrator and author Mel Robbins was sending notices and letters to Netflix and Archwell Productions claiming that they were basically stealing her idea and using it for their series without giving her credit or involving her in the process because she had a book series called Pearl Power, which has 3 books, and the main character's name is Pearl. And I will say, guys, I wasn't able to find the first book because what I like to do when I'm doing these videos is sort of go back to the beginning, especially because at this point with Harry and Meghan, there's so much misinformation out there and everybody just goes with an initial report somewhere that people often don't dig any further into a particular situation. And so I was a bit confused because I was looking at the books and it doesn't seem to reference exactly the idea of a young girl meeting a female historic figure and going on an adventure or something to that effect. But I couldn't read the first book either, so I can't totally say. Although I will say, in Mel's defense, I think this was more of an idea she was pitching for the future or wanted to pitch for the future. However, as well, I found something super fascinating and something where I'm thinking, did Meghan copy Mel or Mel copy Meghan? Because, guys, I kid you not, I was just again looking for more information about this book series, and I came across a reading of one of Mel's books, Pearl Power books. And I can totally see why Meghan would be attracted to this property. I can see it. Here's why. I kid you not, guys. This is from the book. Here it goes. It talks about, you can see here, dinosaurs are supposedly only for boys. And this character goes, dinosaurs are boys' toys. You listen to me. I learned all of this from an ad on TV. And it says, Sebastian and Pearl didn't know what to do. Jerome had been fooled by the adverts too. Does this not sound familiar, guys? Giving kids rules about toys isn't fun. Toys are for all. Something had to be done. I kid you not. Toy adverts are bad. On this, we agree. So let's write to the woman in charge of the TV. They sat down to write their important letter, knowing that things could only get better. Yeah, this is crazy, guys. They wrote about tractors and Jerome's dinosaur and dolls and prams and toy kitchens and more. They told her of ponies and pink sparkly purses. They told her of dressing as doctors and nurses. And when they had finished their best handwriting, they posed their letter. It was really exciting. So, is this not crazy, coincidental? So Meghan Markle with the letter about the soap. Like, it's in a book. Mel literally wrote a very similar version of Meghan's story from childhood. Of course, this is well before anybody really knew about this. So I find that really fascinating. But I also see that these two women are very much on the same wavelength. Very, very much. And if the book maybe was sort of more a departure, then I could see it not coming across Meghan's desk or something because it just doesn't align with her. But this book so aligns with Meghan's philosophy. I have a hard time believing that she had not seen it before, that it was new or sudden, or she had never been aware of this type of property. I think she was. So let's look back at the article. So guys, let's listen to Mel, the author here, about this situation with Meghan.
Really, there's so many brilliant creative people out there who really need the work. And yet you have someone in this high profile position who just feels she can take.
So this is not wrong, because I truly do think Meghan thought that she could take anything. And Meghan isn't somebody who is in such a position of power where she could take anything, guys, with limited repercussions, to be quite honest. And I think it's very sad. I think it's hugely sad. But it's not necessarily a surprise either. And I understand too why Mel didn't come forward earlier. And the thing is, Meghan has a lot of power, Mel does not. And at the time, because of Meghan utilizing racism as a shield against criticism, if Mel had come forward at the time and said that, hey, Meghan stole my idea, she would be raked over the coals. Why we're seeing more come out about Harry and Meghan is because people are not as scared of the racism shield that Harry and Meghan have used before, the victim shield that they've used before, anymore. It has run its wavelength. I think people are now becoming aware that that's not really what Meghan Markle is facing, that the criticism is often based, let's say, in fact or specific situations or those sorts of things. So the shield that they've used for so long, really to protect themselves and develop this core group of people known as the Sussex Squad to relentlessly attack others, it worked for them for a while, but always these things usually do run out of steam at some point. And that is exactly what we're seeing happening right now.
I'm quite disappointed in her because who I thought she was, she doesn't seem to be.
How did you find out that the Duchess of Sussex had an apparently very similar idea involving a little girl called Pearl?
So the only other thing, guys, I will say again, and I'm sorry that this weird thing keeps coming up, that I just don't really know if this obviously I don't think necessarily was attached to the books, but she was inspired by the books to maybe pitch a very similar TV show. Because again, I can't look at the books. The two books we've seen don't really align with Meghan's idea, but the character of Pearl, the idea of a character named Pearl, I mean, it's just so it's like too on the nose, but it's also very Meghan Markle. Again, she is someone with a lot of power. And so if she goes this direction, there's very little Mel can do, to be quite honest.
My mum called me one morning and she told me to check my emails because she'd sent me a link. And I went to that link and saw that she'd sold this TV show to Netflix, which was very, very similar to an idea that I'd had for a TV show.
So it's an idea that she had for her TV show. Now, again, the question is, did Meghan know that Mel was pitching the same thing, or had Mel pitched the same thing? That is sort of like the conflict there, is that maybe limits some of Mel's claims. It's hard again to prove sometimes like complete copyright and everything because you can have similar ideas. There's nothing new under the sun. It's sometimes hard to kind of switch things up. And given this sort of ubiquitous nature of media anymore, it's just sort of hard to make things stick. Like, even though it's out of copyright now, it's kind of in the fair use, or what is that term called? Public domain. For example, like Dracula. Now, Dracula's estate was actually successful in getting most of the copies of Nosferatu destroyed, which very much pulled from Dracula. But now we have all these stories, which you could essentially all originate back to Dracula. But can they really sue for that copyrighted information? No, not really. So again, it's one of those things where it's a bit complicated and tenuous. It's not clear if she probably had that strong a case, but it's still very interesting.
Starring Pearl, my character. Pearl Power is a book that I wrote starring a character called Pearl, who is a little feminist. When I saw that Meghan was...
So guys, sorry, I have to pause about every 15 seconds for copyright reasons. It is, again, we saw this video, guys, about the second book, which was about toys. Very similar ideology to Meghan's. So the idea that Meghan was not aware of this book series, I would find a bit hard to believe because I could imagine that the character is a little feminist and everything would very much appeal to Meghan.
Producing this TV show called Pearl. I contacted a copyright lawyer. My lawyer wrote to Archwell and Netflix, and he said in the letter...
So it was really good as a smaller creator for her to really utilize the skills of a copyright attorney. That is very much a way to go there. So she definitely was within her rights to do that and to follow that route and see where it went. Now, did it result in anything? I guess you could say yes. So let's keep watching.
The similarities between your proposed animation series and my client's work appear to be too many and too striking to be mere coincidence.
Did they do anything?
There was no response.
Now, to be fair here, it was probably not really a good idea maybe to engage too much in this particular situation. I'm sure they were evaluating things behind the scenes because you don't want to sort of get into a legal tussle if you don't have to. But I will explain why later that this could be really detrimental to Mel's future prospects. And I mean, she goes into it a bit, but I think it's worthwhile to explore as well.
I sent more lawyers' letters, and it was after that that I saw that Netflix had dropped the series Pearl.
Did that satisfy you?
I was glad that it had been dropped, but also sad that now it wasn't my idea anymore.
So here's the thing that's a bit challenging because, Again, her idea is not, let's say, super unique. I think other people have had similar thoughts before. You have epic rap battles of history and those sorts of things where people are trying to make historical figures more engaging. And I mean, although the name Pearl, using the name Pearl, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. That's the one thing that sort of pushes it over the edge for me. Again, I'm not sure how much leverage she might have had in the situation. However, it does make it more difficult for her to pitch the idea because, as she says later here, it looks like she stole the idea from Meghan rather than her having the idea herself. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge that she might overcome. I mean, the series might not have gotten green lighted either way, but it definitely puts Mel in a bit of a bind for her future projects.
Because if I were to then work on the idea, it would look like I'd copied it off Meghan. She claims to be a feminist. She claims to stand up for women. Yet either her or her people go out there taking other people's creative ideas.
So why does Meghan do this? Because what she should have done, which would have been smart, is since she had this deal with Netflix, go to Netflix and say, I have this series I like called Pearl. Let's collaborate with the author to bring a vision to life together. And again, I feel like we're missing a chunk here somewhere. Like, was Mel pitching it? Was a pitch on somebody's desk somewhere and it got into Meghan's hands? Like, that's fully possible. I just don't know. I feel like we're missing a step somewhere here in the validity of this case. However, Netflix did also drop it, which is really fascinating because if you would think, I mean, they've greenlit pretty much everything else Harry and Meghan have done. Wouldn't you think they would greenlight a series like this? I mean, greenlit a lot of other slop. I mean, this might have been maybe a bit better. You have David Furnish attached, and you maybe get music from Elton John, those sorts of things. Why did they drop it? I think they did drop it because of this reason. It was too risky. It was too risky for a potential lawsuit. So they're like, we're gonna kick back from this deal. And I mean, that's huge, guys. That is absolutely massive for them to do. And obviously, we don't have their side of the story yet. But if their legal team is looking at this going, okay, we're getting these complaints and we're looking at this pitch and going, this looks very similar. Maybe even the art style was similar. I don't know. Who knows? And they're trying to get answers from Meghan. And she's probably giving them a bit of the runaround. And they're like, okay, you know what? It's just going to be easier to drop it, move on. It's not worth the hassle. So why didn't they say that? You could say in the statement. Now, of course, businesses always want to put the best foot forward. But Netflix, in this instance, I think, was more interested in protecting Meghan as a creator for them rather than another creator. Because the thing is, Mel could have actually been a better creator for them than Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle has given them, I would argue, pretty crap content at this point and pretty crap products, guys. I have, of course, if you've seen my review of Meghan's As Ever brand that Netflix has essentially put their name on it as a silent partner is embarrassing. It should embarrass them. These are crappy and cheaply made. Like, it's just bad. So Netflix, I feel like, has a lot to answer for here, but they wanted to protect Harry and Meghan because they were stupid enough to sign them to a massive contract without actually proving that these two people had anything to contribute at all to the entertainment industry. Harry and Meghan could do their reality TV show. Sure. That was the only thing that was ever going to make Netflix any money. And it's the only thing of Harry and Meghan's that has made Netflix any money. I'm sorry. I firmly believe barely anything was probably made from this first As Ever launch. And given the reviews for it, the abysmal reviews, I don't think this brand will be all that well received in the long run. I don't think it will be. I definitely won't be reordering. Not to mention the fact it was horrifically awful to get my shipment even fulfilled. So Harry and Meghan have a lot of problems. And Netflix wants to try to stretch them as best they can. So they ignored a real creative and went with Meghan Markle instead, and instead protected her by just dropping the project rather than risking a potential lawsuit. And it shows again that Meghan's not a feminist. She doesn't want to lift up the little people, you could say. It's all about making money. And for Netflix, it was also all about protecting Meghan so Meghan maybe could make them money. And it's cynical. It's sort of very entertainment. And it reflects again that Harry and Meghan are ill-suited for the roles they're trying to fulfill right now. Harry and Meghan are bad in the entertainment industry, I would argue. I don't see much of a future there for them, to be quite honest. I just don't see it. And so that Meghan was there trying to pitch something from somebody else doesn't surprise me, though. We've seen a lot of her copying. Basically, everything they've done is derivative of somebody else who has done it better. They don't offer anything new, unique, or interesting. And this has been a consistent problem, one that Netflix has tried to cover up in order to make them look less foolish for signing the two of them. But as time has gone on, as Harry and Meghan continue to wreck their own reputations, people aren't as interested in shielding them anymore. The racism shield they used for so long, it has holes in it now. And so this is what we're seeing happening on every level, is that Harry and Meghan are being held to account for their actions. They're not being able to bulldoze people anymore. Their powers, their influence, people's willingness to give them the benefit of the doubt has completely and utterly disappeared. And I think that's a good thing. I think Netflix should work on actually lifting up creatives instead of trying to stifle them in order to protect mediocre assets. And that's exactly what Harry and Meghan are. They had one thing that Netflix wanted, which was royal family access. They gave them one thing one time that did unbelievably well. Everything else has been mediocre slop. And even that was mediocre slop. It did well just because of the British royal family. So guys, thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you think of Meghan's plagiarism complaints. I would love to get your thoughts. What do you think of that? Mel had a book with an incredibly similar circumstance to Meghan with the dish soap commercial, this time with toys. What do you think about that? I am super fascinated with that. Wouldn't you love to know if maybe they've connected before at some level? It's really interesting, guys. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again soon. Bye.